Alrighty, let's get to work. Let's do this fast. Dorothy, here's your review. I went over the couple questions you asked for, and I also went over, pretty much the last question from each section except for 11, 12, 13, and 14. So those are just rounding things. I think you have a pretty good handle on that. So let's do one of each. Again, this is a Math 094E Introductory Algebra Review for Dorothy. All right, so here you got a couple options. I would say probably your easiest option is change this to a mixed number. Sorry. Change this to a mixed number. From a mixed number to an improper fraction. So again, that's multiply here, add here, keep your denominator. So 5 times 3 is 15. 15 plus 2 is going to be 17 over 5. But of course, you need a like denominator, right? So you need a like denominator. So you need to change 6 into some type of fifths. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the bottom by 5, and we're going to multiply the top by 5. So we'll get 30 over 5 minus 17 over 5, which is 13 over 5. Which you can change back to a mixed number if you want, but honestly, it doesn't say to leave it. It's just one more mistake you can make. You could have done these, this step here and this step here kind of all at once, but that's really up to you. That's a personal preference. The other thing you could have said right off the bat, and again, if you wanted to, it doesn't really matter. I assume that you've gotten this far in math. You know that 6 minus 3 is 3, yes? So if you kind of subtract 3, all you're left with is 3 minus 2 halves, and this becomes, the same thing. It becomes 15 over 5 minus 2 over 5. So if you want, you can subtract the whole numbers and you'll end up with 3 left over. But if not, pick whatever makes you comfortable. All right. There's a common question a lot of people have, like, what's the difference between these two things? So this is 8E and F. All right. You have to remember your order of operations, and you have to kind of understand what a negative sign means. A negative sign, what it really is it's a coefficient, which you'll talk about a little bit later. But essentially what this statement means is -1 times 1 to the 4th. So I'm going to change the number here for a second, just so you'll see. If I said -3 to the 4th, what that really means is -1 times 3 to the 4th. Okay? So it's a little bit easier to see with a different number there. So that's what this negative sign really means, is that it's a -1 times whatever your answer is. And the reason that happens is because you remember your order of operations, right? It was parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication and division, right? So then the multiplication part of it, right? So essentially, what you do here is you're raising 1 to the 4th, you're doing 1 to the 4th, and then you're multiplying the result by the -1, okay? So one of the things you can always remember is that whenever you have a question like this, where there's no parentheses, your answer will always be negative. It will always be negative. This one will sometimes be negative and sometimes be positive, and that will be based on the exponent, okay? So here, -1 to the 4th, this means -1 times 1 to the 4th. Well, 1 to the 4th is 1, right? And -1 times 1 is -1. -1 to the 4th here means -1 times -1 times -1 times -1. So this becomes 1, this becomes 1, and 1 times 1 is 1. Okay? So it's important, even if you're doing this on a calculator, that you enter it correctly, because if you don't, then you're going to get the wrong answer. Just a note over here, if you have a number raised to the next one here, if it's even, your answer will be positive. If it's odd, your answer will be negative. And that's just got to do with a negative times a negative times a negative is going to be, well, this will be a positive, and you'll always get a negative, right? So that's for kind of all odd numbers here, right? And for even numbers, you saw we just had, right? A negative times a negative times a negative times a negative, I get a positive, and a positive times a negative is a negative, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So Just kind of a trick you can remember. Okay, this one over here, this will always be negative over here, and this one again, if it's even exponent, it'll be positive, and if it's odd, it'll be negative. Okay, so if not, you can just kind of write it out and expand the form and do the problem. Faster. Okay. All right, moving on. Let's do this fast. Okay. So this is 8j. This is -4 minus 6 raised to the second power minus 10 to the second power. So this right here, by the way, is what we just went over. That is negative. So it's again going to be this. Okay. But anyway, let's get this. -4 minus -6 is going to be -10 squared. Okay. And this is exactly what we just looked at, right? So this is going to be 100. This will be minus 100, right? So this becomes positive, right? And this one will become negative, so it'll be minus 100. You'll get 0 as your answer. Okay? Good? Worries? Okay? All right. Here we're just, this is all addition and subtraction. Everything is addition and subtraction. So all you have to do is work this way, work from left to right, okay? So, -18 minus a negative. Well, I have minus a negative, right? So I have two negatives here. So what does that really mean? That means 18 plus 5. How I normally write it, once I see a double negative like that, I'll just clarify for myself, is I turn both of these into plus signs. It's very easy to do, okay? So it becomes 23 plus -4 minus 20. 23 plus a negative. Well, plus a negative actually means subtract, right? When we add a negative, so it becomes 19 minus 20. And if I have 19 take away 20, I'm going to get -1. Again, take the larger number minus the smaller number, and then pick the sign of the number that's bigger. So 20 is bigger, so my sign is negative, and 20 minus 19 is going to be 1. All right, here, you got to do the distributive property, and I said you were going over that in class the other day. Again, there's multiplication, right? So we're multiplying -15 times this whole thing, right? So I need to multiply this and this, and you've been doing this a lot longer than you think. So this is how a lot of like multiplication algorithms and rules and things like that work. But for here, it's particularly useful because I can't add these two terms, but I can multiply them. Okay, so -15 times 2/3 x. Well, first of all, the x is coming down. That's it. The x, there's a 1x there, so we don't have to worry about that. So then all I do is -15 times 2 divided by 3. Okay, or if you want, you can cancel out the -15 and 3 beforehand. Your call. But I'm going to go the classic route. -15 times 2 is 30. 30 divided by 3 is going to be 10. Okay. Here I have -15 times -1/5, so it's going to become positive again. I have a negative times a negative, that would be a positive, okay? So 15 times 1 is, I'm sorry, well, 15 times 1 is 15. 15 divided by 5 is going to be 3, okay? And again, just keep your signs, since this is -15 outside. Did I miss out on the first one? Oh, I did. See, I make mistakes, okay? So I have a -15, this is still a negative times a positive, and a negative times a negative, so watch your signs. Watch your signs. Always good to go back and double check when you're done, especially when you're dealing with fractions. All right. Here, why don't you write this as a fraction? First of all, there's a 2 in front of this fraction. 2 is a whole number that goes in front of your fraction, okay? And then you can worry about your fraction bar here, okay? We want to know where this number 1 is. Well, this is the 10ths place, right? This is the 100ths place. This is the 1000ths place. And this is the 10,000ths place. Tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000ths. So that's 2 and 1 10,000. Okay? It's just pretty much that simple, okay? Just to show you another example that was on your paper, let's look at 15. Say something like 15f is 0.125, okay? Which is a fraction you may or may not be familiar with. When you're done with this, you're going to know it when you say it. But here, what we have to do is we have to go to the last number. So I have this is ones, tens, hundreds. So this will be 125. I'm sorry, tens, hundreds, thousands. Sorry. 125 thousandths, okay? And what you really got to do from there is you got to start reducing, okay? So this one needs to be reduced. This last one didn't. This one does. You can pick whatever number you want. I would say 25 is probably your best bet, but you know, if you want, you can use something smaller. Start with fives or something like that. So 25 goes into 125 5 times. 25 goes into 1,000 40 times. Oh look, we can reduce again. 5 goes into 5 1 time, and 5 goes into 40 8 times. So that's 1/8. Like I said, it's a fraction you should probably know when you see it. Okay. Just if you get something like this, make sure you reduce if you're asked to. All right, moving on. Yeah, all right. So this is what calculators are made for, but whatever, we can do it anyhow. It's not that big a deal. Here, the best thing you want to do is you want to make both of these numbers whole numbers. You want to make them integers if possible. So the rule is as long as I move the decimal points the same number of spots, that's kind of a legal move. Okay. So if I move this 1 to the right here, I can move this 1 to the right here. And what do I get? 4,114 divided by 44. Now you're dealing with integers, which people are typically a little more comfortable with. Even though these numbers are not particularly nice, at least there's no decimals. So let's do it. 44 goes into 4,114. Well, 44 doesn't go into 4. It doesn't go into 41. It goes into 411. So how many times does 44 go into 411? I'm going to say 9. Right? 44 times 9. 4 times 9 is 6, 3. And what we got there? 39. Yeah, I'll take it. 396. For my brother Mike. All right, let's go old school. Let's go old school division. 411 minus this. So what's your remainder going to be? Your remainder is going to be 15. And how many times 44 going to 154? 3 times? 3 times, yeah. Right? 3 times. 3 times 44 is going to be 3 times 4 is 12. Carry the 1. Well, 13. Oh, that sounds like a blast, huh? 4 minus 2 is going to be 2. Times 4 goes to 22. It doesn't, but we'll go to there. Add a decimal point, right? Because you need to keep going. You need to keep going. So add a decimal point, bring that down. And this will be 44 goes into 225 times. I guess if you got some more questions on those, give me a holler. But essentially, what you want to do is you want to keep adding decimal points here if you have to. As I said, go through the first few, and if you have some problems with those, I can go over some more of those tonight with you. All right, I gotta go. This one, I'm pretty sure this was a question on your last thing that they gave out, which is usually a dead ringer that this will be a question on your test. Okay, so you can only add things with all like terms, so you got to watch here. I have an A, 1A, 2 B's, 1 C. So 1A, 2 B, 1 C. Okay, so what does that mean? I'm going to do this one minus this one, right? Because there's a negative sign in front of the 16. So 28 minus 16, last I checked, is 12. It's 12a b squared c. Okay, don't mess with these. These stay all the same. Okay. All right, and then my next set of terms of like terms were got 7a squared bc over here, and over here I've got plus a negative 2, which just means subtract. Okay, so what's that going to become? 7 plus a negative 2 is going to be 5a squared b c. Good, and that's it. You can't combine those. You'd be breaking your order of operation. 18, they want you to do a little substitution. Okay, here especially, make sure you put your stuff inside parentheses. Okay, just to avoid any confusion with the negative signs. So I have negative 7 minus 5 times 3 plus 9 times 3 minus negative 1/3. So again, watch that double negative in there. Okay. Good? All right, so again, let's take this nice and slow. Let's start with this right here. All I'm going to do is every little step in between, even though you might be able to fast forward through some of this. This becomes 3 plus 1/3, right? The double negative. Now, I know your initial gut reaction is to add that 3 and that 1/3. You also have the distributed property here. You could save yourself a little bit of time. I mean, you could add these together, right? You could say that 9/3 plus 1/3, like that's 10/3. You could totally, but just as a suggestion, like 9 works really, really well with these numbers. So I would do the distributed property here. So I'm going to do that, but if you want to, you could add those inside first. Just make 9/3 plus 1/3, and that would be 10/3. Hey, how's it going? Good morning. I'm making a video for Dorothy. You want to say hi?
Hi, Dorothy.
All right, sorry, I'm back. I know it didn't look like anything changed, but I know you can check the timestamp in the corner. It definitely. I just talking to Rihanna. She is officially married, and so I gotta get. Oh my God, did I break this now? It's not working. Oh no! Oh no! Wait a minute. It's gonna work. All right, so let's distribute the 9 both of these. Sorry about that. Okay, 9 times 3 is 27. 9 times 1 divided by 3. Well, 9 times 1 is 9. 9 divided by 3 is going to be, what is that called? 3. Good. So you're asking for when you do and don't need parentheses. Now that you've distributed that 9, there's nothing else to do. You can lose those parentheses. Okay. Now we're working. I'm sorry. No, we have one more multiplication thing to do here. Okay. So we did our parentheses, we have no exponents, now we do multiplication division. So -5 times 3 is going to be -15, and now I'm just going left to right. -7 minus 15 is going to be -22, plus 27, plus 3. -22 plus 27 is going to be 5, 5 plus 3 is going to be 8. I probably should check this answer as I was going across. All right, let's do the last one. We'll check them real quick, make sure there's no mistakes. Okay, last one. Again, we're working from the inside out. Okay, so you get your brackets here, right, and you get your parentheses inside your brackets, like inception math, right? So saying, okay, saying you might be tempted to do the distributed property here. Don't distribute this yet. Okay, you can a little bit later. Now here, again. Here now, if you want to, you can distribute this -3, but that's really up to you. Here, since it's just 6 minus 2, I don't know, I'm leaving that as 4, okay? If you're wondering why I kept those parentheses, it's just to let you know that there's an operation of multiplication between that -3 and that 4. So you could have distributed 3, but you don't have to, but again, let's keep going. On the inside here, I have inside my parentheses, okay? Again, you can't distribute this 3 yet, because here, there's still multiplication to be done. You can only distribute over addition and subtraction. So you have to simplify any multiplication you have first. -3 times -4 is going to be -12. And again, you could distribute this -3, but don't, because 17 minus 12 is 5. It's 15 minus 3 times 5. Okay? Again, let's multiply. -3 times 5 is going to be 50, and oh, so funny, math teachers, the answer is 0. So this big hulking mess is 0. So I got your sheet here. Make sure these are right. 19p was 0. It's good. 18j was 8. It's good. 17j was good. 16p. I hope that's right. Good. That's what calculator can make for. Yeah, 93.5. 15h. Yes. 15f. Yeah. Okay.